interesting. Cool. All right, well, thanks everyone for joining us today. My name's Liz, and I have assembled some of the leading experts in programmatic audio here today. Hands up who was in the last session. Yeah, so I think we're going to give you a slightly different angle on what you've just heard today. While we settle in and get ourselves ready to, used to the room and the light shining in our face, we're going to do some short introductions. So I'm going to go first, but panelists, I'm going to want you to introduce yourself. And since we're talking about audio, I'd like you to share your current favourite song or podcast of the moment, please. So my name is Liz Ferguson. I work at Google on the Google Ad Manager team. And I'm currently really obsessed with an album called Silver by a band called Say Shishi. Connor, over to you.
Hello, I'm Connor. I'm from EssenceMediacom. Currently, I'm rinsing the Take That album because I'm going to go see it live next week.
Love that. Love that for you. Anne.
Hi everyone, my name is Anne Bouttier. I head up programmatic for Spotify across the EMEA region. My current favorite podcast, I would say, is The Daily from the New York Times, which is a constant, really high-quality news podcast.
Hi everyone, I'm Bithika. I work at the trade desk as lead director within the inventory management team. I do see that I'm known as an inventor up there, so that makes me sound way more clever than I actually am, so I'll take that. In terms of podcasts, I love a good true crime podcast. I listened to a podcast called Sweet Bobby recently, but with any podcast, I tend to just binge listen to them. I don't know if that's a thing, but I just can't stop listening once I'm invested.
Yeah, hours and hours go by in a day. Absolutely, I'm with you on that. So to get into the meat of the session, we're going to uncover as many perspectives as we can around programmatic audio today. And I'm going to start with you, Anne. What have you noticed around how audio consumption has been evolving and has evolved over the last couple of years in particular?
Sure. So I guess maybe I'm going to start by what hasn't changed. And what hasn't changed is the momentum that we're seeing around audio consumption globally. If I just take an easy example for me, which are the latest Spotify's number, we now have 600 million monthly active users globally, and that's up 24% year over year as of last Q4. About 63% of them are on the free tier, and that's up 28% year over year. So we're even seeing faster growth on the ad-supported tier than on the kind of subscriber tier. What has changed, though, I would say are a couple of things. The first one is the content that's being consumed. It used to be a lot of music. We're now seeing, not only on Spotify, but across a lot of different platforms, podcasts rising extremely in an extremely fast way. We talked about that on the previous panel. And we do see it as kind of the future of growth for audio consumption. And I think the other kind of type of content that's growing fast is audiobooks, which is it's more recent, but it's seeing a really fast adoption on the platform as well. And we said the second thing that has changed and is kind of a fundamental trend that we're seeing is the evolution between devices. We are seeing connected TV rising very fast, connected devices rising very fast, in-car consumption as well. So it really kind of expands, I would say, the number of environments where users are engaging with audio content at large.
Yeah, that's super interesting. It's kind of as a content specialist, like stretching the length of the content as well seems to be a bit of a trend. So like podcasts, like you were saying, consuming multiple podcasts in a day, and also potentially consuming those longer form types of content on TV as well is a super interesting trend for me
definitely.
Personally. Bithika, what are you noticing about audio consumption and potentially consumption of advertising as well alongside that?
Yeah, I think it's no surprise that audio is rapidly evolving. I feel like we've always kind of mentioned it as an emerging channel in the world of advertising, but I do feel like it's fully emerged now. Digital audio is just kind of growing now. If you think back to when probably the last time you listened to an FM radio, you probably can't quite remember that. Everything is definitely being consumed more digitally now. And most listeners, UK listeners, actually listen to audio, spend most time kind of consuming digital audio over any other digital channel. So that just goes to show in terms of just consumers, where people are actively kind of spending their time, digital audio is the way forward. We're seeing kind of a lot more increased budgets go through audio. At the trade desk, we saw audio grow quite significantly year on year, and we're continuing to see that grow. And in turn, with kind of, listeners increasing, we're seeing more and more inventory available, so scale is less of an issue. Advertisers are able to kind of spend quite successfully through audio campaigns across multiple different devices.
Yeah. And how from the agency side, Connor? So the title of this is Audio as part of an Omnichannel media strategy, but that sort of stretching time that people are spending with digital audio in particular, and trying to fit that within an Omnichannel plan. Do you have any good examples of that or anything to comment on that angle?
Yeah, I mean, I've been in programmatic for about 8 years now, and I felt as I've kind of grown into it that us in programmatic have always been the elephant in the room, right? It's been, are they going to steal the TV budget? Now they're going to steal the digital out-of-home budget. What are they going to do next? But I think the principles from traditional media can be carried over, and that's where it starts to really yield a place on the plan. Radio was one of the earliest forms of advertising, and then that was followed by television, and there was a case study previously that showed that if you took 10% of your TV budget and put it into radio, you would see awareness increase by 15%. Now, if we take that to the modern day, we've got the digital era. Nielsen have done a very similar study where they've said if you've got video and you accompany it with audio, your brand favorability will increase, your ad recall will increase, your awareness will increase. These trends aren't potluck. It is something that is, these two formats go hand in hand. And I think that's where we start seeing the step into omnichannel advertising as a partnership with audio and video. It really starts to marry up the context with the content. And I think that's going to be even more important later on this year when we see things like the death of the cookie, in which we can get onto the measurement bit later on, but marrying context with content is where you start really seeing resonation with your audience and your consumers.
Yeah, and the omnichannel puzzle, Bithika, is it something that it must be something that you're talking to people about all of the time? Is that content and context a thread that you're noticing as well at the trade desk?
Yeah, definitely. I think audio naturally kind of fits into that omnichannel puzzle, that omnichannel ecosystem. Audio for us is just an extension of everything else. Like, you want to ensure that you're adding audio to your plans if you're running across CTV, if you're running across display, if you're running across video, and all that content and concept should marry up against each other.
Mm-hmm. Talking about targeting capabilities in omnichannel, Bithika, do you have anything to comment on that? So we'll talk about measurement in a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, around targeting and omnichannel, how does that work for you?
Yeah, I think especially with kind of an omnichannel approach, there's so many different benefits. I feel like you're able to really tap into certain opportunities. So you're able to, for example, serve a CTV ad on Channel 4 followed by an audio ad on Spotify, and then really reinforce that message with a dish at home on like global screens. And you're able to really utilize data and insights to see what works, to follow that consumer kind of journey from device, from different channels, from different devices. And the fact that you're able to gather these real-time insights and actually kind of utilize them is very different to probably historically what you've been able to do prior to the programmatic world. Programmatic audio and programmatic omnichannel campaigns really allows you to tap into the data and insights that campaigns can give you. And also, I think some of the key benefits is holistic kind of frequency capping. The fact that you're able to kind of frequency cap alongside kind of different publishers, different channels, means that you're really able to kind of minimize wastage. One campaign that we ran was that we saw, had an advertiser that ran across various different channels, and they actually reduced wastage, audio wastage, by 13%. And that 13% was then able to be kind of reinvested into net new reach. And I think the fact that you are able to kind of holistically frequency capping is one of the key benefits of being able to include audio into your omnichannel campaigns.
Yeah. That's super interesting about the audio wastage as well, and being able to use data on the digital side to really support that. Staying with the positives around audio, I know that we're talking about it as part of an omnichannel strategy, but the reason that we've called out audio is that we all believe, I think, that it has key benefits as its own channel. And what do you think the audio formats provide that is unique? And how does that interplay with marketing budgets? Like, how are you bringing that to the fore for your buyers and advertisers and agencies that you're talking to?
Sure. So I think Connor, you touched on context around audio, and I think that's a key piece and something that we very much kind of put forward when we speak to agencies and advertisers. If you think of it, and audio consumption, it's a really constant companion throughout the day, right? So you would like wake up, shower with some music on the background, hear a podcast on your way to work, listen to some music at work, coming back home in the evening on your connected device, etc. So that gives a fantastic opportunity to really align with a different kind of context in people's life. So definitely, like, context is always our kind of point number one. And the other thing I would add on to that is, if you think of audio and the role alongside video, it's a way to tap into screenless moments. So you can really engage with your kind of target audience and users in different ways throughout the day, as Bithika was saying. Yeah. Another key point for audio, and kind of tying it back to the omnichannel conversation and also some of the conversation we've heard on the previous panel, is thinking about how kind of digital audio has a role to play in terms of getting incremental reach versus kind of traditional TV, for instance, or traditional radio. And audio in that sense is a fantastic way to get some cost-effective additional reach onto some more like traditional AV plan, right? So we ran a study last year with Nielsen to understand how much incremental reach was audio on Spotify, bringing on top of traditional TV on a weekly basis, and that was plus 28% incremental reach in the UK, and versus traditional radio, that was plus 27%. So that's a pretty significant way to really improve your campaign reach by adding audio. The last point I would make on that, when it comes to the unicity on audio, and I think we're going to touch on that in a few minutes as well, is the role of audio in creativity. With audio, you can really kind of tap into personalization at scale and produce pretty highly creative content. Should it be like 3D audio, for instance, or just really clever, fun content at a fraction of a cost that would be versus a video production.
Yeah. Just as a bit of fun for me, does anyone in the room have their own podcast? Or have you been on a podcast? Yeah, not as many as I was expecting. We're at an audio conference, guys. What are we doing? I just think the barrier to entry for creating content and creating things that are very creative in an audio perspective, it's a cinch. Get yourself a microphone. Get into it. This is my podcast. What are you talking about? No, I don't have one yet. Bithika, so Anne was just talking about incremental reach there and how that interplays with how that helps with the conversation with agencies and advertisers. Is there anything that you would say around the unique value of audio in terms of that omnichannel strategy?
Yeah, I mean, I think with audio, it really, like Anne said, it's a one-to-one conversation you're almost having. I think with the kind of increase in podcasts as well, you really are honed into kind of listening. You can walk away from the TV, you can with display ads, you might not be as focused, but with audio, you really are engaged, and advertisers should really tap into that engaging moments that you have with the consumer. Audio has so many benefits, and I think some of them are the fact that, you can target more efficiently, you can deliver audio at scale, you can gather kind of real-time insights, and all of these just help kind of showcase how audio is such a great channel to kind of be investing in.
Yeah, well, I agree, but let's flip this a little bit. We know that it's not simple, and there are challenges with audio. Connor, what do you think about that? For example, we hear a lot about measurement being really challenging with omnichannel campaigns. I just wondered if you have any spice to add around what agencies are considering challenging with audio.
Yeah, let's bring the mood down a little, for sure. First, I think that to give an agency perspective, as I kind of mentioned, it's challenging for agencies because the way that they've been set up traditionally for years is to have specialist teams in each vertical. And now we've got to an omnichannel digital era where we're saying, don't do that, just give it all to one team to do all at once. That, of course, has its challenges from a people perspective, from a structural perspective, but that's for way more senior people than me to worry about. But what we do need to start doing is testing and learning so we can really see the value in it. There will be cases where actually it makes more sense to go direct and do things in silos. And a lot of the stuff that the guys at Spotify are doing, Acast and the other podcast channels, is branded content where the host reads are done on a direct basis. The interesting thing is this year is that the dynamic ads placed in podcasts is going to surpass the revenue that is accumulated from previous direct bookings, which should give an exciting input for all of us to say, well, it probably is something we should start testing and trialing this. I think outside of that, when it starts to come to measurement, and it's a really good point, I completely appreciate what you've mentioned about frequency capping. I don't know what the right frequency cap is, to be perfectly honest, and I don't think other brands do either. I think they can come along and say, we don't want to do more than 5 a month. That's fine, but we should also look at brand outcomes and see what they're actually going towards, because sometimes you will need to have a higher frequency. And from an omnichannel perspective, because it is so new, we just currently don't right now know what that is. But that's where we can start lending itself the other way in terms of measurement and start asking for help. I think Spotify do a great job in terms of releasing brand lift studies and understanding what the additional bits and pieces is. The performance you get within a DSP for audio is not anything you're going to write to the client about that's going to surprise them in the slightest at all, to be perfectly honest. Your listen-through rate's going to be high because otherwise you wouldn't buy it. The CPM is the CPM. It's going to be on a guaranteed basis normally because we're not in the auction dynamics yet. So you need to have that additional piece that's available to you to show why the value is there. And I think that's where we need to push the needle for measurement, for agencies, for media owners as well, but also for brands to understand what the value actually is.
Yeah, absolutely. And anything to add on measurement there before I touch on some other points?
Yeah, I guess I definitely second what Connor just said. We on the supply side have a view on what's going on our platform, right? And we can give a lot of depth in terms of the detail and the insight we're giving. But then this is where programmatic comes into play, and the fact that DSPs such as TTD have such a holistic view on the media plan, on the effectiveness, on the performances, is where we can really start kind of moving the needle and have this bit of true omnichannel approach to a media plan. But that being said, I do agree, I would have called out measurement as a challenge for sure. I think just to add on to that, another challenge that we're seeing a lot with brands and agencies actually is on the creative side of things, right? Because I think audio is still, from a creative standpoint, being thought of at a pretty late stage within the planning process. We see a lot of brands still that do not have an audio creative or do not have kind of a sonic identity, as we say, where some other brands, like if you think of like McDonald's or Netflix, for instance, they have a very distinctive sound, and they're quite advanced in that space. So it's a really big focus for us to engage with brands and agencies ahead of time to educate on what good audio creative looks like and make sure that audio is part of the creative set from the get-go, as opposed to being an afterthought where, we should have like audio on the plan, but we don't have a creative, even if it would help in that case, of course.
I think that sort of feeds into your point, Bithika, about the sort of, frequency capping and what you were saying around frequency capping, not knowing, what is a good frequency cap. Surely that also comes back to how good the creative is and whether the creative has been adjusted for all those different channels across that omnichannel plan. Because following that audience member around, but with really amazing creative that is very adjusted for audio versus CTV versus digital video or whatever, is going to be more impactful and honestly just less annoying and much more sticky, isn't it? Yeah. Bithika, I don't want to not ask the DSP perspective or the trade desk perspective on addressability in particular. So if we can just go back to that, what are your thoughts on?
Yeah, I think one of the main challenges I'd say we see with audio is addressability. So kind of the lack of IDs and signals that we do tend to see from certain publishers, certain partners. I think it is a kind of an industry-wide issue when it comes to audio. And that's to do a lot with kind of, smart speakers, podcasts being served on third-party platforms, lack of consent. And all of that does cause a few difficulties when it comes to the full extent of what we can achieve with audio, since there might be a certain percentage of inventory that we're seeing that has limited IDs. Therefore, we can't fully utilize programmatic to its full capabilities because we're not seeing those IDs. Having said that, you know, in this world of like addressability, sometimes I feel like we do look too closely. If we go back to kind of the days of, you know, normal FM radio, you weren't able to do all these kind of new and shiny things. And sometimes we look too deep into, you know, the specifics that kind of makes us forget of what we're trying to achieve in the first place. Like Connor said,
sort of straddling between sort of that digital video feeling and old traditional radio, and sort of trying to sit somewhere in between. The expectation around those signals is sort of on the digital video side, but potentially some of the performance of audio is more sort of akin to radio.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, you know, with programmatic, with audio, we want to be able to do all these kind of fancy things and frequency capping, data insights, and we are able to do that. I'd just love to see that kind of evolve as kind of time goes on, and, you know, work with different publishers to see what we can and can't do. Audio is very much kind of been in that post-cookie world anyway. So I also think other channels can take learnings from what we're doing with audio because of the fact that it's been operating in that manner for so long. And also, I think one of the key things is just seeing buyers have more kind of, I guess, freedom with the channel. A lot of what we see with audio is buyers still tend to kind of buy it in that programmatic guaranteed manner. The fact that you are able to kind of choose the right impression and kind of bid at the price you want means that there is a lot more freedom for you to really get what you want from a campaign. And in turn, sellers are able to really, you know, maximize the value, sell that impression at what they want to sell it as. And because audio is still quite a limited space in terms of publishers, you don't have, you know, an infinite supply. There is key publishers that exist in that market. There is a finite amount of supply. You are able to really kind of, I guess, pinpoint the value of that inventory, that impression. So it's a benefit for both buyers and sellers to really, I guess, fully embrace the world of programmatic audio in an omnichannel environment.
Yeah. I think if I can just add one point onto that, I would say the whole like PG and PMP element is very much a question of maturity, I think, of the audio programmatic market, right? Bithika, you touched on to that. It started with the supply, which was limited, so we've built kind of the programmatic market onto PG, but now that we have more supply, more suppliers as well, I think we're also seeing a bit of a rebalance, I would say, in particular in the quarters where the inventory is plentiful between PG and PMP.
Yeah, interesting. So it's moving away from, not
away, but I think we're
additional
evolving
types, evolving into additional transaction types. That can only lead to healthy ecosystem, I think. So we have 3 programmatic audio experts here. And I want to know, for anybody who is new to audio in the room, what would be your top tips to get the most out of the medium first time round? I'm going to start with you, Connor.
Okay, I've got 2. The first one, no surprise, is try programmatic audio first. I kind of have to say that because it's my title, but alongside that, it's more to the point of that we're going that way anyway. I think it's very easy to look at the direct buys and all the shiny things of host reads and all that sort of stuff, and that is really attractive, don't get me wrong at all. But we are really trying to push the needle towards programmatic, and that's where we are seeing this omnichannel piece. So adopting that early means that yourself, your brands, your clients are going to be ahead of the curve, and that's where you will be able to innovate before other people can. And the second point kind of piggybacks off of that as well, is that we know this is at its infancy at the moment. So just ask people around you for help and understand where the industry, I don't think I am an industry expert, but the people on stage definitely are. Ask these guys what they can do. Google do an amazing job with their pair functionality, allowing you as clients and brands to partner your first party data with external media owners. So from the custom context to content piece, you know where your audience is, and then you can partner that up. Spotify, as I mentioned, are basically a one-stop shop for your omnichannel piece. If you want to do audio, video and display all in one place, they will tell you how to budget it and how to get the most impact. And then the trade desk as well do an amazing job of having that agnostic piece, so they can look for you across the industry and tell you, okay, outside of Spotify, what other partners are there and how can we also access that from a cost-efficient standpoint. So I think it's really important just to sometimes hold your hands up and go, let's get some feedback from other people and then let's test it first and then develop that. But please do it from a programmatic standpoint because long term it will benefit you.
Yeah, thanks for that, Anne.
Yes to all of that.
Yeah.
I feel like you answered it for us.
Yeah, you're
We haven't got mics to
fantastic
drop, but
No, I think I would maybe add a couple of things which we alluded to earlier, but I would say thinking of audio early on as part of the kind of planning process to me is the key thing because it helps with the creative aspect of it. It also helps with understanding where audio fits into the plan versus other formats, where it fits within the omnichannel strategy. And I would also say kind of clarifying if audio plays into the kind of traditional upper funnel branding aspect of the plan, or do we want to go a little bit more mid-funnel, which we're seeing more and more of. So my one advice would be, start early on all of those topics, and then, definitely talk to us. We can help understanding where audio plays. We can help produce audio, all that sort of things.
yeah, great. Thanks. And Bithika?
I think I touched on what Anne said earlier is be creative. Like audio gives you that space to be creative. Like use DCO, like utilize data. It gives you the opportunity to really be one-to-one with your kind of consumer. So it's the perfect opportunity to play around with your creatives. And I also think, again, like Connor mentioned, like still being unsure of like what the optimal frequency cap is. This allows you to test and learn. So test and learn, like, see what works from historical campaigns, try different approaches, and then you'll be able to kind of utilize and take those learnings that you've done for your advertiser and then make the kind of optimal strategy for your brand.
Yeah, amazing, thanks. We've got a couple of minutes. I've got another question, but I did ask the panel if they would take questions from the room, and they agreed. So does anyone have a question that they would like to ask any of our experts while we have them? Anyone? Yes. No? You've answered all their questions already. Right, well, I have... right, you've got a minute each. What are innovations set to revolutionise this space? I'm going to start in the middle with Anne.
Right, so I think I have to mention AI. I'm sorry. No, in all seriousness, like we've been using AI for a long time at Spotify when it comes to kind of content curation or content recommendation, for instance, but we're definitely moving even faster right now. We quite recently tested a feature actually for podcast kind of host, which is voice translation in their own voice. So I could listen to like my favorite French podcast, for instance, in English in the voice of the French host, which is quite amazing. So in that sense, I would say AI does open like a lot of possibilities around audio. We could think about audio creative production as well in partnership with creators. So there are a bunch of things like that I'm very, very excited about.
Yeah. Bithika?
I'm going to be the cynical one here and be like, I would say we still need to get the basics right with audio. I feel like there's still so much left to do with where we currently are that let's try and like focus on that. Have a bit more faith in the channel. Like I said, test and learn, utilize data, utilize all the kind of functionalities that programmatic audio gives you, and also work with kind of publishers to ensure that we're getting the most that we can out of their inventory. And then hopefully we'll see kind of audio just continue to grow and grow.
Connor, last word to you. Where are you seeing innovation?
I think it could be in the gaming space. I think that we're already starting to see that with mobile gaming with the folks like Audio Mob. But I think on top of that, we know there's loads of branding content in games like Fortnite. There's a loading screen when nothing happens. That's a clear space where we could still tap into that audience. And I think that would then translate to other games as well. So with the rise of gaming, I think that's probably the next step for audio.
Great. Thanks very much. That's us done. Thank you so much to my panellists. Connor and Bithika. Thank you very much for listening to us.